So my journey as a vegan started in 2016. I actually came across and study showing the benefits of being a vegetarian, and I started like wondering, like I've always had like issues with meat, like not digesting meat properly, and always had like tummy issues. So I decided to give it a go, and I loved it. Like I immediately felt better. My digestion was so much easier and nicer. So, I thought, wow, there's something here. I felt more energy. It was challenging, I'm not going to lie, especially back at that time in Spain. I was living there at the time. It was not many options. If you went to a restaurant, it was like, yeah, do you have like a vegetarian salad? And they would bring like tuna in the salad, stuff like that. But, I was very convinced that was the right way to go. And it started not for the animals, to be honest, or the environment. It started more for how I felt, eating meat or fish. And I believe food has an energy, and that's something I've developed with years, with my own experience. And I believe when you eat and you just like, you become more conscious about how that food is like being introduced in your body, what it's doing in your body. I think you start realizing, what are the good foods for you and the bad foods for you. So that's how everything started. And then my husband gave me as a present this book from Rich Roll, which, like is this vegan influencer and an athlete. I'm also an athlete. So, I loved him instantly when I learned about him. And my husband gave me this book that is the Plant Power Diet, or the Plant Power Way. And it was recipes, like vegan recipes or plant-based recipes. And I was like, wow, there is a whole next step that you can take after being vegetarian, which is plant-based or vegan. And then I started cooking, like these recipes, and I loved them. And I was feeling even better, when I was removing cheese and milk and eggs. And I thought, wow, there is something here, like about all animal ingredients. And that's how it started. I decided to go fully vegan it was 5 years ago. So that's 2018. And it's been an amazing journey. But then, I started digging more into animal welfare, like factory farms, that kind of thing. And I started like freaking out. I was like, oh my God, what is this? In fact, I'm doing a documentary on factory farming in the US. My background is also like video and video making. So with my husband, who is also a video maker and another documentary director and like a little team, we are putting together a documentary on an activist group based in the US called Direct Action Everywhere. And we are following them, and like it's a very, very interesting story. But that's how I started learning more about like factory farming, and I was devastated. I was like, oh my God, like this fight is the fight against lack of information. Is like people don't understand what they are putting in their bodies and what we are contributing to. And my goal now is to raise awareness about that, as well as just following my journey as a vegan. So, animals have become like a really important part of the reason why I'm a vegan, or the motivation to just keep going and keep sticking to this lifestyle. And then, of course, the environment. When you start learning about the environment, everything piles up, right? Like everything is adding up to this vision about the world. And I truly believe the future of this planet is vegan, because there's no other way to preserve our planet. So I'm fully convinced about my decision. And we have a reputation, vegans have a reputation for being like very pushy and trying to convince everyone. And my approach has always been to lead with example and try to to just be an example for other people, and just spark curiosity from that place, instead of like trying to convince or try, I normally don't talk about these things with my friends or my family unless they ask. Or if I'm, Christmas dinner, I'm bringing my own food, and with my family, my extended family, and they start asking, and these type of situations I really enjoy, and I find people are more and more open, especially like younger people. So I think there is a lot of hope for the future. I think we're in the right direction here for sure.
Did you find yourself in those kind of situations quite a lot, when you transitioned in, like friends and family kind of quizzing you, and almost like, you felt the kind of need, as many of us do, to sort of become the leading authority on every aspect of it? Did you find that from your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is something, just the fact that you're a vegan or you're following that lifestyle, I think put people in a position where they feel bad about themselves. Like, this person has made this huge decision that is a very difficult one, and a lot of commitment, and a lot of effort. And here I am taking the easy route, knowing that this is not the right thing for my body or for the environment or for animals. So I think people just confronting you, they feel they are doing something wrong, and they sometimes become a little defensive, like, oh yes, and trying to find like arguments or reasons for not going vegan. So I think just the fact that you are a vegan puts that little bit of tension between you and the rest of the people, if you know what I mean. Even if you don't talk about it or try to bring the conversation or anything like that. So I think there is a little bit of shame and guilt, like in some people when they just see that you're a vegan, or, some other people are very open, and they may say, oh, I've been thinking about these. Maybe you can give me some tips or explain a little bit more. My business, as you know, is a supplement for vegans business based in the US. So a lot of people ask me about nutrition and what should I be taking if I decide to go vegan or remove fish or meat from my diet. So a lot of people are curious, and I think things are changing a lot. As you know, like, this movement is growing really fast, and people today know and understand what it is. They're not like these huge myths or misconceptions about vegan lifestyle, and I find it easier and easier to have these conversations and deal with these social situations.
That really resonates with me, that point, that maybe there is an element of guilt there, just in your sort of your very presence. You might not even be saying anything, or like, I've experienced this where you ask for a vegan menu in a group. And that's all you've done, really. You've not said, oh, you should all be asking for the vegan menu too, or, you're all terrible people or whatever.
Yeah.
But by virtue of you asking for the vegan menu, it sort of invites a lot of questions. And sometimes they can be like quite defensive or quite pointed in the way that those questions are put to you. Almost like, I'm going to test every theory that I've heard on you, and you need to have the answer for it, and so on and so forth. How have you personally kind of combat that? What's your approach to that? In my sort of, probably my worst times, I'll confess that I probably end up in a bit of a defensive argument.
Of course.
Maybe less so these days, although occasionally there's a little switch flips sometimes. Yeah. But normally I'm pretty relaxed with it, and I try and remember, I was exactly there at a certain point.
Of course, yeah. We've all been there.
Exactly. And I try and approach it with kind of a kindness, but not with a. It's always a difficult one to balance as well, because even in saying, I try and approach it with kindness, there's an element of like superiority to that, which I try to not like project. But I'd love to hear what your sort of approach has been in those kind of situations.
I suppose, like, I lead with empathy, and I try to put myself in the shoes of the person I have in front of me, or like the group of people, reading the room a little bit and see how open they will be to that conversation. I think starting with health always helps. Like you can, and that was my own experience, right? Like, like I stopped eating meat because I wasn't feeling good about, when I ate meat. And that sort of triggers a conversation that is very safe and is very, normally goes pretty well. Some people may say, oh, I have the same issue if I eat like meat in the night, I have like these tummy problems or whatever. So that's an easy conversation. And then, I'm very cautious about like moving into animals or the environment. I think the environment is the second safest. I think most people understand that and share that that's, it has an impact on the environment, like raising all these animals. And then when it comes to the animals themselves, I think that's where, like it gets very heated and that's all the emotions come in like very strongly, because we move from scientific proof or my own experience, in my body, which are like, there are not so many emotions involved. But when you talk about animals, suddenly it's like this rush of like emotions. And that's where it gets tricky and it gets difficult. And, I'm always open to discussing like, like I've been there, and open to see if they want to hear more, but without pushing them into, oh, but like this is happening or you're not right. Like I don't do that. I normally, if I, with my family is different, but if I meet someone for the first time and then the second time, the third time, I wait a little bit to start talking about these things. Even if they ask me, I avoid a little bit like the questions and I don't get into the conversation deeply. But I start like putting some ideas out there, and it's only when I feel that they are ready for the conversation, for a peaceful conversation, that I move ahead and have the conversation, because otherwise I think it's not interesting, it's not positive. I think it's all about like reading the other person in my case.
I think you're 100% right. I think when somebody feels they're prepared for the argument, they're sort of like expecting you to go on the attack. So it's okay, but if this person's going to go on the attack, I better start. I better make the first move almost. When they realise you're not there to attack, then I find that they're much more disarmed, and actually then they're probably more open to listening to everything if and when you do get to it. Mm-hmm. So I'm 100% with you on that. I think that's definitely the approach, although it can be difficult sometimes.
Also, Jim, like for example, if you throw this sentence like, I respect everyone's decisions about how they want to eat and how they want to live, like just reassuring that you're respectful. You don't think it's the right way. You don't think it's the right way for humanity, but you respect, right? Like I think coming from a place of respect is always really important, and to reassure the other person, like, hey, I respect you. I'm not judging you, or you know what I mean? Like, which we do in a way. Vegans, we do judge people who eat like animal products, but I think if we can just hold that level of respect for the other person, right? Not for their decisions or their lifestyles, I think everything becomes more calm and, like more positive.
Yeah. You're right. It's there's definitely a sort of sense of we can't help but feel like we ultimately disagree with what people believe. Absolutely. But and it's really difficult to come at it with respect. I think it's hard to when you so fundamentally at your core disagree with something. I guess it's a bit like I'd put it akin to over here in the UK, folks who are supporters of maybe Brexit and folks who aren't supporters of Brexit. It's really divisive insofar as once people get into that conversation, they sort of get really entrenched, and I guess it's like like that, except that 3 times a day, if you're with other people, when you eat,
We get into that conversation.
yeah, that conversation can't help but be
Yeah.
avoided. Like a sort of Democrat Republican kind of conversation can't help but be avoided three times a day. It's it's really difficult. But I love your sort of approach of come at it from a sense of respect. Thinking about your journey again, going back into where you're at now. So getting from where you were, like at probably a health position to start with, and then, like you say, you've moved into kind of all 3 elements, if you like, and then into documentary making with direct action everywhere and all kinds of things. Seems quite in relative
journey.
terms, quite a journey. And also then terrace seed as well, which wouldn't be my first port of call if I just become vegan. I'm going to set this up and I'm going to challenge this whole system.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about how you got into all of that.
Yeah, this is so interesting because when I started thinking about terracing, and I will explain in a minute what it's about. I'm a long distance runner. Like, I do ultra marathons in the mountains. Actually, that's one of my favorite things to do in life, which is crazy, but I've been doing it for a long time. And when I became vegetarian, I started hearing a lot of people like, you're going to stop eating meat and you're an athlete and you're like a long distance athlete. Like, that's crazy. You're going to lose like muscle. You're not going to perform as well as before. Like, a lot of fear around like removing meat and fish from my diet. And then when I decided to go vegan, that was even worse. It was, oh my God, you're not going to eat eggs. And the interesting part is that the year I went fully vegan, it was one of my best performing years of my athlete life, if you want, right? I've always run for pleasure, like just for myself and have fun. And, I can be competitive, but I've never been an athlete, like a professional athlete or anything like that. But that year, I was recovering so fast. I was like, I could feel my body. It was like incredible. It was like superpowers. So I started like winning some races, and for the first time in my life. And I was like, wow, there's something here very powerful. So in my experience, like, it's not just like ethical reasons. It's just like I can feel it. So when I started like getting all that fear from other people, like, oh, you're going to miss like essential nutrients and vitamins, and I said, okay, let's supplement. Like, that's the way a lot of vegans go, right? Like, okay, I'm not getting my B12, so I need to supplement, or my omega-3s. So I started looking into what it was in the market, and I started taking all these supplements that were all like made with animals. And that's something I didn't know about, but when I started researching a little bit, I was like, I wonder, like, this capsule, what is it made what is it made with? And I found out it was gelatin. And gelatin, a lot of people don't know this, but it's made with fat, bones, and tendons of pigs, cows, and sheep. And I was like, what? So as I was researching more and more into the use of animal-derived ingredients in supplements, I realized that there was a lot of misinformation. Like, people didn't know this. I also, my experience, like, with the environment, like I am worried about the environment. I'm vegan partly because of that. Or that's what keeps my journey as a vegan. And then I was seeing like all these plastic pill bottles, like with supplements, like plastic, 76% of pill bottles are made with plastic. And I was like, this is the worst experience for me ever, right? Like, I hated it. So then I started thinking, what if I build a supplement that is fully aligned with my vegan needs? And I was thinking there must be more people around in the world needing supplementation and nutrients as a vegan, because it takes time, right, to figure out like your vegan diet. You need to be very diligent about how you prepare meals and cook your meals. You need to know a little bit about nutrition to make sure like you have a very healthy diet. And I thought, I'm sure a lot of people who are on that journey will benefit from a multivitamin with all these different nutrients that are, removing all these animal ingredients, and of course, like the packaging, something more sustainable. And that's how I started thinking about this idea. And I started building it. I was working at this company at the time. I had a yoga meditation online platform in Spanish. It was the leading Spanish language platform, but it was acquired by a company in Boulder in the US, where my company is based. So I joined that company, and after a couple of years, I have this entrepreneur poison in my veins, I suppose, and I can't stop it. And I wanted to build like my next business, and I thought this could be an amazing business. So I started working with my co-founder, and we built this supplement for vegans that has 9 power nutrients that are, of course, vegan. They are sustainably sourced, so no impact on natural ecosystems. And then it's packaged in biodegradable packaging, so no plastic. And we are a very mission-driven company, and we decided to try to understand better the impacts of the supplement industry in the US on animals and the environment. And that's how we created this report. And the findings were so shocking. It was like, oh my God, this is worse than what we thought, right? 24 billion animals are killed every year by this industry. 24 billion with a B. And most of them are fish, because they use them to make fish oil that provides omega-3, which is interesting because fish are middlemen. They take omega-3 from algae. And we kill the fish to take that omega-3 in the form of oil. But the reality is that the fish is taking the omega-3 from the algae. Why don't go to the algae? And of course, you can go and, destroy like a marine ecosystem because you're taking the algae from there. But these days, for example, our omega-3 comes from microalgae grown indoors in a very controlled environment with no impact to marine ecosystems. So there are ways of building supplements that are completely innovative and positive for animals and the planet with no harming anyone in the process. So, going back to that report, we were seeing like half of the supplements in the US were made with at least one animal-derived ingredient. And then all this plastic, right? Like there are like 1.8 billion pill bottles that are made with plastic, and most of them, around 75% of them, end up in landfills, and they never get recycled, because that's the other thing, right? Like people think, oh yeah, plastic, but this is recyclable. Yes, maybe the material is recyclable, but it never gets to a recycling facility, and it never gets recycled. In the US, only 9% of recyclable plastic actually gets recycled. So it's a mess, right? Like this industry is super polluting, is archaic, is opaque. It was a mess. So we decided to start leading like a sustainability, ethical revolution in the supplement industry. And that's our mission, is to stop animal suffering and plastic pollution in this industry. And it's been a whole journey. We recently joined forces with Animal Safe Movement, which is a nonprofit based around the world. Like they have, chapters all over the world. And we launched this campaign called the Transparent Label campaign, where we are petitioning the FDA to include a section in supplement facts labels indicating whether or not the product contains animal-derived ingredients. So make it mandatory for brands to indicate that, so people can know if their supplements have any animal-derived ingredients. Because these days, they are not forced to show that in the supplement facts label, So a lot of people are buying a product that they don't know if they have like if the product has animal derived ingredients. And we believe that consumers need to have the right to know about these. So we've raised we've gathered almost 5,000 signatures so far, and we're hoping to get more signatures. We need like 25,000 to, for the FDA to pay attention to our petition. So that's the goal, and that's what we are working on. So, TerraSeed in a way, yes, it's a business. Yes, it's a company, and we need to survive as a company and bring revenue and sales. But at the same time, we are so mission driven, and we have like this activist heart, if you want, that we get involved in these other crazy projects. And I think we're doing a lot of work to start these conversations in the supplement industry in the US, for sure, like to try to change things.
I mean, this sort of blows my mind. So, yeah, and it's completely baffling to me. So, there is no requirement currently for if an animal-derived product exists within a vitamin, it doesn't need to be stated on the back.
No.
There's no need for it to be on an ingredients list.
So, for example, 44% of supplements are made with one of the two elements in supplements that contain animal-derived ingredients that are most commonly used. The first one is gelatin. If you are using gelatin in your capsules, you don't have to say like this gelatin in the capsules has been made with animal-derived ingredients. The other element that is mostly used is magnesium stearate. And this is like a component that is used in the machines that create like the pills, the capsules, because it's a material, it's like a powder type of thing that prevents the machines from clogging and from the pills sticking to each other. So it's just like an ingredient they use in the manufacturing process. But then, like the pills contain these ingredient to some extent. And that's something that no one knows. And they are not asked to, to include this information in the supplement facts label. In the US especially, there are not so many requirements from a food safety point of view. Like in Europe, there are more requirements. And I think the law is tougher in a way. In the US, the law is more loose, and the requirements, the regulations are not as strict as in Europe. So that's why I think we have to do more work here in the US than in Europe, for sure.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
it really is baffling. So is there only criteria then that the product is safe? I take it there must be some kind of checks and balances to at least say this product won't cause harm to somebody, but there's beyond that. That's it. No further requirements. Yeah. There must be. I guess if things fall into the category of allergen, then there must be some laws to sort of support that.
There are some requirements. For example, if you are using iron in your formula, which is our case, we use like a very small amount of iron because we found that a lot of vegans are women. I don't know the numbers in Europe, but in the US, it's around 75 to 80% are women. And women tend to have anemia and a low iron storage in their bodies. So we decided to introduce a little bit of iron, which is absolutely safe, but there is a regulation that you need to put like a warning if you're using iron, like informing that, it might be like you might be at risk of storing too much iron, especially if you're a man. So there are some things that you need to introduce in your supplement facts label, but on the whole, they don't ask you to verify, or there's no like, a way to verify that what you're saying you have in your supplement facts label is actually the truth, right? Like you can run your own third party verifications if you want, and that's more like consumer facing. If they know that you have one of these third party verifications or certifications, they will feel safer taking your supplement. For us, for example, the company manufacturing the pill, actually, we always do verification tests after each of the batches, the production batches. So we take the pills, we understand what is in each of the pills, what is the different ingredient quantity. So we do that check. But on top of that, you can do like a third party check that is more, like for the consumer, that's more trustworthy, like it's okay, these people have hired like a different company to do this check. But all of this is not mandatory. The FDA is not asking you to do any of these. There are some rules about how you present your supplement facts label. There are some companies doing tests on food products or supplement products that are out there trying to see. It's called like a clean label. It's a company, or like, I think it's a non-profit actually. They take like different products in the market and they make sure that what the company is saying this product contains, it really in reality contains all these ingredients, these elements. So, like it's surprisingly easy to build like a product without doing all these tests or checks and just put a product out in the market without any consequences, right? The FDA, you can register your product with the FDA and you can register your facilities with the FDA, and they may end up sort of like investigating about your product or your facilities or inspecting your facilities, but it's not something that is going to happen necessarily. They always say they will make these checks within 2 years, like that period of time. But it's not something that is going to happen. So it's a very loose space, if you want. There's not a lot of regulations. So that's why a lot of companies like Terracy, we're running like, testing, shelf life testing, like what is the expiration date for this product. Like these are all things that you have to do yourself and invest, your own funding to run these tests. So it's a very open up to each of the companies, like to run this type of verification.
This might seem like a really naive question, but 24 billion animals a year going into this industry. Why are they choosing to use animal products in it? Is it a case of ease? Is it a cost thing? Is it this is how we've always done it? Like what? Or is it a combination of all three?
It's all of that, Jim. Unfortunately, it's always been like that. It's cheaper. There's a whole industry that is based on a way of doing things, right? Like all their systems, their equipments, machinery, processes, like huge companies have been built on top of these type of systems and processes. So, change into a more sustainable way of doing things implies a lot of investment, and they are not, they are not willing to make that investment. So I think is a very, that's why I was saying it's a very archaic industry, and you see like other categories in the food industry are going more into that sustainability direction. For some type of consumer packaged goods, like it's more common to see, like I'm going to give you an example, like power bars, right? In the past, they would put like all kinds of things, a lot of like corn syrup, for example, or sweeteners that were not like that good for your health. And these days you will see like most of these power bars contain like natural products, no added sugar or anything like that. So there are like some categories in the food industry that are going more into that direction, even with packaging, like introducing sustainable packaging. With supplements, it's a completely different story. They're still like stuck in the past. And I think that we are a band, maybe like 10, 12 brands who are like, walking in this direction and trying to do things differently. But there is still a lot to be done. And as a consumer, you may not look for sustainable supplements. That's a concept that is a very new concept. And a lot of people won't go and search, like, oh, supplements, they don't make the connection. Or vegan supplements, they don't make the connection. You know what I mean? Like, it's assumed that these are vitamins and minerals, like capsules. That's, I'm sure that's not animal derived ingredients in this product, right? And then you learn that D3 comes from lanolin, that is the sheep's wool, right? Comes from sheep's wool, and there are like millions of sheep being killed for these, or not killed, but about the wool industry is horrendous, is horrible, right? Like how all that works, omega-3 that I just gave you the example. But there are like many practices within the supplement industry that are very archaic, very damaging, and there's no consciousness at all about the impact, like this industry is having on the environment and the animals at all. So that's why we are on that mission, basically. It's a big mission.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, you sort of touched upon that at this point just then, but I'd like to hear a bit more about it. Does the consumer get it at all? Are they shifting that way, or is this very much like our mission at TerraSeed is to communicate this, because people their simplistic view of it, and kind of why wouldn't they think this is multivitamin or vitamin supplement equals healthy, equals good company because they've got nice green packaging or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you're having to communicate almost? Because I'd imagine that there's also an element of cost that comes with this. Like if you're doing things the right way, naturally, because that's not the way everybody else is doing it, and they're doing it at scale, I'd imagine it's cheaper for them to do it, mm-hmm. as you said, in the way that they are. So to switch over, there's not only have you got to convince the general public that there's an issue here, but then you've also got to tell them or communicate why they have to pay more for that, I'd imagine. Yeah. Is that the case, and is that a big challenge for you?
Absolutely. I think there are like two sides of this conversation. So the first one is as a mission-driven company, we have like an added cost of trying to educate and try to raise awareness about these issues. So it's not something that consumers know, and what I was saying before, no one's going to go and type sustainable supplements. That's that's not in their minds. They don't even know there is such a thing, or there are like supplements that are not sustainable, or supplements that are bad for the planet. So there is like this extra effort we have to make in order to educate consumers and the whole industry, a lot of other brands, right? Like, so it's actually pretty challenging for a small company like ours, but at the same time, the message gets across, and when the consumer is faced with that information, it's like, holy moly, I didn't know this. This is amazing. They start like getting interested about what we're doing and why. And so there is something about what we're doing that I think is very positive and is making an impact on people, on consumers. On the other hand, putting together our product has been very time consuming. It requires more investment in R&D, for example, or packaging that is fully biodegradable. We actually came up with this packaging by finding like different elements around the world, like try to understand what was out there that we could use to make an effective and optimal pill bottle. And that took a long time of testing and learning, right? And then once we came out with this pill bottle that is made with a tube, and it's a shame I don't have like a tube with me. It's in another room, but like the tube, the challenge we had is that if you want to pack the pills into the tube with let's say a 3PL, which is this company that does all the packing for you and the shipping, the fulfillment, they were saying like, this is so difficult to put together, and this doesn't fit in our machines, in our pill counters, and like, is 3 or 4 or 5 times the cost of doing it than with a plastic pill bottle. You see what I mean? So for us, our margins got really, really, really tiny because we were trying to do everything the right way, and the system is not prepared, the industry is not prepared. So we had to end up doing that ourselves in, having our own warehouse and spending more money. And it's a very craftsy, it's a very like hand heavy, type of process where you have to just go and do things with your hands. And then the ingredients we use, right? Like, of course, it's going to be more expensive to grow algae indoors, for the first time in a control environment, in a facility that uses like solar power, that kind of thing. That's going to be more expensive than, like having a fish farm where you can just, raise all these fish and just get their oil, and it is more expensive. So it's very challenging for a small company like TerraSeed, to not only raise awareness and lead like this new direction in the supplement industry, but also looking at our margins or numbers or metrics, like we see that we have a disadvantage, honestly, if we compare us with other companies. And we also try to have a price that is like reasonable, that people can afford. In fact, we have like a note in our website saying, if you cannot afford this product, contact us, because maybe we can find a way for you to, pay us less or whatever, because we want vegans to be healthy and not miss any nutrients. And we know people who come to us are on the same mission and on the same sort of like value set. So it's very, very difficult. I'm not going to lie, Jim. It's been the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life, for sure. And this is my third company that I built. And, equally it's been beautiful and exciting, but I'm not going to lie, this is like a huge challenge we have ahead of us. And we were born in the midst of COVID with a lot of like supply chain issues. So it's been crazy. But we are so convinced and so committed to our mission that, that gives us a lot of strength and motivation, and we're not going to give up, for sure. And we're going to keep fighting. I'm a fighter, so I'm not going to give up. But I'm not going to lie, this has been quite a ride, and it's David against Goliath, it's that type of experience. It feels like that very much.
Maria, it's incredible what you're doing, and I think like there would be so many. You could have taken so many shortcuts to get something vegan to market, and market it as vegan and call it good. And you've gone the extra mile, thinking about the packaging, thinking about how people afford it, thinking about changing how the industry works. I think more power to you for that. I think it's incredible work. For to round us up, what's the kind of call to action you'd like to give to folks out there? I'd imagine it's to get on that petition at the very least and sign that petition. And where would folks also go to find out more about TerraSeed?
They can come to our website, is terracid.com, and we are going to post actually like a banner with a link to the campaign, because we had to remove it for some reasons, some campaigns we were running, but you will find information there. And also, if you look for the transparent label campaign, if you just type that in Google, it will take you to our campaign. And I don't know if in the notes of the podcast, maybe we could add like a link to the campaigns page, and also to our webpage. But it's pretty easy. It's terracid.com, so folks can just go there and get all the.
Yeah, we'll absolutely put links in the show notes. Yeah, no problem at all, Maria. I think it'd be great for everyone to go ahead and sign that. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. More power to you over at TerraSeed, and so all the best for the future.
Okay, thank you so much, Jim, for having me. And I hope folks can understand better like what they have in their hands when they buy supplements, and be more mindful and more conscious about that. And I hope we can just continue walking in this direction and making it happen when, like you can go to supermarket and find everything is healthy, sustainable, and animal cruelty free. That's the dream, right? One day,
awesome.
One day we'll be there.